Try getting Kai in here again. Hey Kai, respond to that request that I just sent you to join the room.
Hey.
Yay, okay. I didn't know if this was
Sorry
going
about
to
that.
happen.
Yeah, I'm a little bit of a boomer when it comes to Instagram.
It's all good. I know how it goes the first time. How are you?
Yeah, good. How you doing?
Good. I'm excited to talk to you today.
Mm. Yeah, I've been looking forward to this.
So, welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. This is One Offs Out the Frame. We are so happy to have you. I am C. Sando. I'm the digital director for One Off. And today I am talking to Kai Gani. Is that how you say your Instagram name, by the way?
Yeah, Kagani, that's my full name. Kai
Okay,
for short.
okay, got it. This is Kai Turner, who I don't want to take the time to tell you about. I want you to introduce yourself to the people the way you want to be known. So who are you and what do you do?
Yeah, sure. So I'm Kai. I've been basically I describe myself as a designer first and foremost. So that's what I've done for the past, 25 years or so in the digital space. Started my career coming out of Stanford in actually in a social enterprise that was bringing together communities from East Palo Alto and Palo Alto together into a forum on AOL. So when AOL was a thing. So it's sort of coming full circle in that sense because I went over to uh, I worked for design agencies and studio architect, got my start there, and worked with some amazing designers, and moved with them to London, and continued to work in London and stayed in London for in Britain for another 17 years, where my career went from design to more the product side and startups and innovation. And I was working at the design company Moo that does the print cards that some people know, but kind of leading an innovation team there to do physical to digital experiments and products of putting chips in cards and unlocking digital experiences out of that. So that's where I started talking about and thinking about NFCs, so tokenized experiences in chips. Then I came to the States, wanted to come back to the States. I'm in LA now. Started working at Sony in video on demand, but while I was working at Sony, kind of woke up to this space of NFTs and really got into that. Started some projects, got into the world of Cryptokitties collectibles, and sort of published this blog post about cracking the Cryptokitties DNA code so that people could know what they were doing with the breeding of Cryptokitties. And then the market crashed, and I kind of moved on to, move my focus back into video on demand. Left Sony, and I'm currently at Netflix. But all the while, I stayed in touch with the NFT community and the folks that I met from those days, and watched it grow. So I kind of got back involved with advising companies. So I advised a company called NFT 42 that launched the Avastars project. So I was sort of involved with the team as they were planning and developing that, and really seeing what they were doing there. And then when Art Blocks came along, I was interested in it as a more from a art perspective. So I got involved as a generative artist, and that was really something I've always done, and never really showed to the world, but it was something I did as a passion, and as a way of blowing off steam, kind of blending my background of, I have a computer science degree, but then I've spent most of my career in art and drawing and sketching and those sorts of things. So generative art is like a nice mix of the two, where I can, I don't program and code in my day job, but it was sort of brings me back to that world. And at the same time, it's like, I can express sort of different generative artistic ideas. So I kind of dug through some old projects that I worked on and thought about what I could create for art blocks and came up with a concept for 27-bit digital, which launched was my first project on art blocks. I made a few other projects through art blocks after that, but that was a project that did pretty well and was part of the batch that was in a lot that went to Sotheby's, and other projects have continued to do pretty well. And through that, I've met some amazing artists. I got involved in, so I was curious, like, being in the part of the space where you're at the cutting edge or the bleeding edge of technology, and you find that there aren't so many folks that look like you necessarily. So it's you're finding that you're not you're in a space where you're wondering where are all the black artists, where are all the black NFT artists. So around the time of uh, this month of Black History Month, I started this little campaign on my own of Black NFT Month, where I just decided I was going to go out and find a different black artist, black NFT artist every day, buy a little piece of their art, tweet about it, and maybe try to kind of raise their profile a little bit. And met some amazing artists through that. Gotten discovered this group, discovered some other groups. Found some folks to collaborate, like IX Shells, XL Yard, who's gone on to explode, well beyond what anyone could have known. But she's doing amazingly. Um, and and yeah, that was kind of my introduction to the NFT art space, where before I was more in the collectibles and kind of startup space. And then my latest thing that I've come into, I was interested in the world of DAOs. So I started a Meebits DAO, just as an idea because it seemed like it was the right mix of people who are interested in DAOs. I am working with a company called Block, who's kind of building the DAO. And we were talking about there's no better way to learn about a DAO than to start one. And that was around the time that Meebits launched, and we saw that Larva Labs took $77 million on Meebits. So there was clearly an interest in investment in this space. But we were wondering, like, how does that community develop, and how do you continue to develop around that and make something that's part of the metaverse, that they said these are digital objects, these are 3D avatars that you can bring into the metaverse. So I was just asking, how do you get that done? Can the community get that done? And that was the initial thinking behind Meebits DAO, and it seems to have gotten a good amount of support. We've onboarded our founders. We've raised $500,000 in ETH through the fund, and we're continuing to raise this development fund that we hope to give back to projects in the space. And as part of it, it's important to me that looking at the space and looking at the community that has disposable income to spend on Meebits, we're also have a program and continuing to look at programs around bringing people who are from underrepresented groups into the community, into the founders group. We just announced Roz Gold on Wu Day as one of the founder members, and she's very passionate about helping us with this idea of a program called Meebits Like Me. That's going to be about maybe getting people of color, LGBTQ plus women and girls to have a campaign where we can expose them to what's going on in the Meebits community and find a way for people to relate with something like a collectible that might seem sort of silly at the surface of it, but it's really part of this bigger industry, this industry that's really taking off. And there's a lot of attention, and it feels like it's the future direction. I mean, to those of us in it, it feels as big. We were around for the beginning of the web, and it feels almost as big as that again, now that we're getting into this blockchain world. So yeah, I think that's sort of where
That's a
I am
lot.
up to date today.
That's a lot. So I'm going to take some of that stuff apart. But first, you are one of the few artists that I've spoken to that seems to have gotten into the NFT space really early. Do you
Mhm.
recall what your direct introduction was? Like, was it a person who told you about it? Did you see an article? How did you find out that NFTs even existed?
So I think it was through probably Reddit. So I was like, when I said I came to the States, I'd actually heard about Ethereum. I knew the guy that led the marketing launch of Ethereum, but he explained it in a way that I didn't, when I was in London, I didn't really understand. It didn't really connect with. He was talking about this distributed computer and, it's going to be on everyone's machine and they can run programs. And it just didn't, I couldn't see how that was going to be tangibly relevant to me. But then when I came to the States, I have a friend, Mattia, who was talking about the price of Ethereum. So I was interested that there was some value associated with it. So initially, I got into crypto and was just looking at, what's the crypto market about, and that really, I did a deep dive into what is crypto, and I found it fascinating to see all these 24-hour markets that were trading, and I played around with that for a while, and then that I guess got me into all the Reddit forums. So I was just looking for information about Ethereum and what the Ethereum community was doing. And then I was actually just sick. I had the flu or something and was at home sick and was in the Reddit forums and saw this Cryptokitties launch as they were at some kind of hack day, maybe F8 Denver or something. And that was pretty much it. I just thought I'd check it out. And before I knew it, I was just like playing around with it, breeding these kitties, and did like a bunch of those until everyone found out about it, and it just sort of blew up Ethereum at that point. Um, but yeah, I didn't spend a long time in CryptoKitties, but it was what fascinated me about it was then like how does it work, and wanting to get under the hood of it. So
Yeah.
that's what exposed me to like, oh, this is something called NFTs, and that was kind of the first, that's CryptoKitties defined the standard for NFTs that we know now. So that it was more, understanding what it was. And through that, I got into the blockchain. When I was at Sony, I wrote some patents that I filed through Sony. So I was really into it and really wanted to do some projects that were around the blockchain and NFT and how that could relate to the sort of entertainment and media space.
I second what Kenra just said and shout out to the flu because maybe you wouldn't have been here if it wasn't for the flu. So the work that you're creating now is generative art, right? Can you
Mhm.
describe to people what that means?
Sure. So it means that basically you come up with a concept around. So I'm kind of influenced by folks like John Maeda and folks. It's not it's like you have to have a strong concept for what you want to communicate. So for me, I was looking at what was just I won't kind of over egg it and say that I had this concept from the start. It was just experimentation, but I was trying to make sense of this experimentation that I've been doing, like this retro pixel style, and I realized that I was touching on themes from growing up, having been born in the 70s and growing through the 80s and seeing the emergence of digital as we know it, and as it sort of took shape. I was fascinated by the screens of that time and how people were making colors out of you only had a limited set of like 7 colors and black and white, and how do you make you had to kind of cluster them together and create these sort of pointillist type art pieces back then, just because of the limitations of technology to get these colors. So if you wanted like a different color, it didn't exist. So you had to sort of make this pattern to approximate it. So I was always fascinated. Like, that's something that fascinated me as a kid, and I was always playing around with paint programs and trying to figure out all these colors. So when I finally had the ability to do using modern machines, just go through and generate all these colors. That was originally what I just wanted to do for the fun of it, and I did that in like 2020. I don't know when that was. That was like 2014 or something, and just put that on my website and had it running for a while. So that was something I'd done, and that I knew was finished and was sort of ready to go as a building block for a generative art piece. And I'd done other things that weren't really as ready to kind of package up and think of as an NFT. So I use that as the basis of the patterns that I work with. And then I also had this idea of the 7 segment like the LED displays that show those old-fashioned LED displays that have all the segmented digits. And what I liked about it is that both with the pattern and the digits, you could just kind of randomize it completely. And one thing that people look for in these collectibles are rarities. So they look for, oh, this one only appears. There's only 2 of these out of 1,000. It's only one of these out of 10,000. And what I liked is that you could do something that's completely random and still come up with these rarities by kind of how the sort of human intervention of looking at it and kind of thinking about it and see, you're going to recognize something that looks like a letter or something that looks like a number. I mean, I've got one of them, like this is something that looks like an 8. But that's not something that was designed in. It's going to be rare because of the probability of getting that, but it's not something that was designed in. Like in terms of how it was designed, it's completely random. So I kind of like the idea that you were getting these rarities and things that you could pick out and name, but it wasn't like I programmed that in to be rare. So that's sort of the aspect of the generative art that I like. And then out of that project, out of all of my projects, I tried to do a physical to digital link because that's also coming from my background when I was doing these tokenized physical cards and thinking of digital experiences. Is now I'm doing the reverse. So like you saw, I did a glass print. So one of my projects was an NFT that you could redeem. That was called Pixel Glass, and you could get that and redeem it if you have a 27-bit digital and get that glass print. And then I did an xsbits project that used the same it's called a random hash, the random number that generated the 27-bit digital. And so I'm only using like 27 bits, hence the name. But there are all these other bits that are in this random number. So I had the idea that what if you use that for a different art piece? So I took some of the same patterns and kind of rearranged that visual language and expressed it in a different way. And got this xsbits project. So it's kind of linked to it's paired with this 27-bit digital that it shares the same random number with. And then with that, I did some aluminum prints that I did a promotion for. So I'm always looking to see, thinking about what's the physical representation of the digital. And in one of my collabs, we did called Byte Beats with an artist named CJ, who's like this generative AI music genius. But he was working on this way of generating just a simple line that comes up with endless possibilities. Like it comes up with a music sequence that just goes on, could go on for decades before it actually repeats. It's just so interesting and complicated. So we did that as a collaboration, and then we thought of a lenticular print is what he wanted to do for that when we were talking about a physical representation of it, because there's so many different, it exists in time and has so many different representations that lenticular print is like those, when you see a sticker and you can look at it from different angles and it sort of changes, you see different things on it based on how you're holding it. So that we felt was like the best way to represent something that's, in its digital form is both in motion and has a sound component. So it seemed like a nice way to pair it. But I'm always looking to kind of link projects together. So I want to, right now I'm kind of constrained by the technical side. So I'm looking for, technical solutions to do what I want to do, which is link the project further and have 27-bit digital and xsbits come together and create a new project that's derived from it. And I've done, and there was a collaborative project that I wanted to do that involves 3D. That was like a 3D fashion show where it's has the patterns overlaid onto a 3D figure. But there, it's like the tech constraints of what I have in mind, and getting we have to work out like how we're going to do that. So yeah, so I think where I am today is really looking for, and that's a project with Apollo Kid Steve, which we started. We kind of dropped an example, but he's probably waiting for me to get back to him on that but I'm trying to figure out the tech of how we can actually do the thing that I have in mind, which is like you could take an excess bit and just create a fabric pattern for this like 3D model. And in my mind, it's like even have a fashion show with that model. So we'll see if we get there.
So you brought up a few things that people probably have no idea what they are. So let's take it apart a little bit. What's xsbits?
So xsbits is a project. So that's the project that's related to my first project, 27-bit digital, and that was a project that I just did. So a lot of what was happening with art blocks at the time was they were selling out. I mean, they still are selling out so quickly at a drop. So people were even not able to get them. I think it sold out in like, I don't know, 2 minutes or something, even though there were 1,000 of them. So I was looking at, a way to design, it's xsbits.com. It's still up. I was looking at a way to design something that didn't have people, FOMO into it, didn't have people sort of buying like crazy, but rather gave you the opportunity to browse through and find the one that you want. So that's kind of what I call the anti-FOMO design pattern around that, where it's just like it's not set up for you to just blindly buy into it. It's set up in a way that it wants you to spend some time with it and find the one that really resonates with you.
And what was your first project? The 27 bits?
27-bit digital. That was my first, yeah, generative project that I put out there. I mean, there were other NFT things that came before that. Like I did a lot with Avastars and did some projects around that. But that was the first generative art piece I did.
Okay. And you talked about a lot of different collabs that you've done. One of the first ones you mentioned is the one that you did with IX Shells. You want to tell us about that a little bit?
Yeah, so that was one that we called bitwise archetypes. So all of my series I've been calling, starting with 27-bit digital and using this pattern that I've been calling dhexabit. All of them I've been calling the bitwise series. So this was looking at something that she had been doing around these kind of masks. So she did these generative masks that were again a randomized pattern, but had this emergent pattern that looked like faces, and some of them looked like masks. So I was trying to see if I could incorporate that and do something with my style. So I took my patterns and I worked with tried different things with my patterns, and we went back and forth and kind of evolved the style and launched. I mean, we haven't actually completed the series. We launched the first six on Foundation. She put up three, I put up three, and we tied it to archetypes. So like personality traits coming to, because I've read a lot of like Carl Jung and other things that influenced it. But yeah, we mapped it to different personality types, and yeah, that was just a fun process. So we pre-generated all these pieces, and then went through the act of curating them and deciding how we were going to attribute the total collection. So there'll be 16 in total, if and when we get around to releasing the rest that map to different personality types.
If and when.
Yeah.
We are quickly running out of time, but there's something I really want to get to. The last time that we spoke, you said something that stood out to me around advice. I was asking about what advice you would give to artists and creators in this space. And you had said, stop looking for signals of what other people think is good and build a collection around what you like. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So it's I think it's easy to try to chase, especially when you get success early on. It's like trying to you could go down this hole of trying to figure out, oh, why did that sell, or like who are the big collectors and why, what, you can look at their profiles and what are they collecting and how can I make something that they're going to want to collect. And I don't think that's good for you as an artist. I mean, it's probably, I mean, it's interesting to get to know your collectors. I mean, that's a good kind of uh, feedback to hear, like what resonated with it for them. But you don't want to, if you're catering your style, you know, maybe you did something that wasn't your style or was sort of outside of what you really consider core to what you want to do, and that took off. You should still go back to what's core to what you want to do, because I think it's the authentic uh, work that will last. If you're just sort of chasing trends, I think maybe you'll sell. I mean, it's hard to people can these profile picture projects that are going crazy right now. It's like I'm sort of shouting into the wind about how we should do things that will be better for the industry, but you're telling kids that are able to do some low effort thing, and it makes $2 million. So until that stops happening, you're not gonna we're not gonna be able to sort of steer the ship in the right direction. So yeah, there's that. But I think if people want to be in it for the long term, like the perspective that I have, and with other folks who are actually doing very well now, but went through a long kind of NFT winter of not doing well, it's like you just have to keep building, and you have to have a vision of where you're going to go in 3 years, and like stick to that, and that is how your project will actually be really big. If you want to be the next CryptoPunks or the next MeBits or what have you, then it's like start building now and don't just kind of put the blinders on to what else is going on.
Mm-hmm. One thing I do want to mention for anyone who's here who might be newer to the space, that you write a lot on Medium and you have quite a few pieces that are kind of introductory pieces, including the one that you had mentioned, the Cryptokitties one about how it
Mhm.
works and how the breeding works. But you also wrote one super early into the game called a cryptocurrency primer, which to me is still relevant for people who are just entering and don't have any idea what's going on, because you talk about the kind of like the foundational principles, the stuff that has not changed about crypto. So that's a really great piece on Medium that people might want to check out. What is the best way to keep in touch with you, to see what you have going on, to keep abreast of the new projects that you have coming out?
Definitely Twitter. So at Kagani is the best way to reach me. I mean, I'm on Discord as well, but my Discord is so noisy that I actually maxed out with the Meebit style. I maxed out the 1,000 friend limit, so I'm
Wow.
almost given up on Discord. So definitely Twitter. I mean, I respond to all my DMs in time. So that's the best way to reach me.
Anything you have coming up that we can look out for?
Uh, so I'm pretty heads down in Meebits because again, this is all happening outside my day job. So I'm pushing ahead with that and seeing where that can go. I've got some, working closely with the partners at Block to build this thing. So I think we want to see, where we started that in May. We kind of want to see where that goes because there's so much attention and excitement. So part of me, I feel like, yeah, that's taking me away from the art and I don't even want to think about the opportunity cost because I probably, if I'd spent all that time in the art and doing art blocks, I probably, financially, again, it's the short term view versus the long term view. But we really want to see where this DAO thing goes. And I would say anyone that's thinking about DAOs as well should get in touch and should get into, Block is being built out as this community that's helping people get, that's another great resource. And I'm working with them, advising them to build up those educational resources so that they can, people can get up to speed and learn more about DAOs and because I think that's going to be the next big space that people are moving into.
And if people are interested in connecting you about the DAO, Twitter is the best way to do that.
Yeah, yeah. Contact me on Twitter and I can point you to Block. That's a Discord server.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much, Kai. I really appreciate you
Thank you.
taking the time today.
Yeah, this is great. Thanks for inviting me.
Awesome. Thanks so much for everyone coming by, and keep in touch with us. We always announce when the next one is happening. So see you next time. Thanks, Kai.
Thanks. Bye.